I have a confession to make. It took me 21 years and a federal prison sentence to figure out what courtesy flushing was. So in prison, when you're in like the holdover centers, waiting to go to like your designated prison, you're in 2-man cells. Cell doors are open during the day and you're free to walk around, but at like 9 o'clock or a little bit before, they lock you in your cell for the night. Usually I would go to the bathroom during the day, but this one night wasn't feeling too good and I really had to go. And so I'm sitting there on the toilet doing my business and my bunkmate's looking like I have fucking 3 heads on me. He's yelling at me like, bro, what the fuck? What is wrong with you? And this man is literally ready to beat my ass because I had no idea what a courtesy flush was. I figured it out real quick.
There are not that many convict rules in prison. It's a fairly godless place. But one of the rules, and a lot of people don't fucking like it, is you don't pick your own goddamn nickname. Most of the people have some sort of fucking street name they come in with that they just ride out with, or they get a nickname in prison that's given to them, and most of the time, people end up not fucking liking it. But if you walk up to somebody and say, my nickname's Axel, my nickname's Chainsaw, they're gonna be like, yeah, right, whatever, Fondle. That's a real nickname I gave someone, Fondle. It was fucking great. The only dude that I met who made up his own nickname and got to ride it out was because he came up with something better than anyone else could, and it really fit his personality. He went around telling people in prison that he was the big gay hustler. This dude claimed to be straight as an arrow, but he had his people put him on a gay dating site for pen pals that are in prison. He would hustle these dudes and he got literal thousands out of these dudes from just writing letters back and forth. He had a car and apartment lined up for him when he got out. A lot of the dudes thought the nickname was kind of an insult, but he'd given it to himself and he was set up.
This is a quick dish we would make in prison, either as a snack or for dinner. Ruffled potato chips, mayonnaise, the mackerel fish pouch, and the prison staple, ramen noodles.
Listen, if I'm going to be required to monitor this shit and eat some of this, you're going to have to pay me.
Empty 2 packs of ramen. Add hot water. Place in microwave for 5 minutes. Drain the water. Add the seasoning. Add the mayo. Add the mackerel. Mix together.
I actually like this dish.
Add chips.
Just like prison.
I don't like this at all.
May or may not have eaten that whole dish and have the worst stomachache ever right now.
Why do inmates knock on the table before they get up after they eat?
I would be eating at the chow hall and I would always see the guys I was sitting with knock twice on the table before they got up and left. And after watching them for a couple weeks, I started doing that because I didn't really want to feel left out and everyone else was doing it. I thought it was some type of prison protocol I needed to follow. My bunkmate was sitting next to me one day and saw me do it and he's like, you know why they do that, right? And I was like, no, I just started doing it randomly. And he's like, it's a sign of peace and respect for when you leave the table, to announce that you're leaving the table and that you're done with the meal and you're heading back to the unit.
Why is Pooh Shiesty wearing this in this picture? Let's get into this. I'm gonna try to use my wording right so they don't take this video down again. In prison, if you're wearing one of these, it's because you told the cops it's game over, you're done. You don't want to be here no more. If you catch my drift. They put you on 24-hour surveillance and they make you wear one of these. You cannot rip this up, and they do that so that you can't make like some crazy thing out of it like a noose. It's also fireproof, which means you can't set it on fire. We, as convicts, call that thing a turtle suit. We clown people for being in this turtle suit. Everybody's hard until they have to go to jail and actually do time. Then they want to pull this card and then really act like they about it. Me personally, I've never ended up in one of these. When I was faced with time, I ate it and handled my business. And that's facts. What are the top 3 prison myths that there are? Let's get into this. Number 1, dropping the soap. This is not a real thing in prison. In prison, you shower in single showers. You don't shower with other people. And plus, if you drop your soap and you're actually willing to pick it up off the ground, you nasty. Number 2, going to prison and saying you're just gonna beat up the biggest dude that you see so nobody messes with you. In prison, you do not underestimate anybody. You might run up thinking you can hit him with a sucker punch, and guess what? It might not work. He might just eat it and then embarrass you all over the tier. And number 3, you have to join a gang in prison to survive. This is a myth.
Honestly, you can ride through prison solo. Just stay out of everybody's way and don't try to get in other people's business, and you should be fine. And that's facts. If you're gonna actually break the law smart. Part 1. Let's get into this. Tip for you guys. Did you know the feds cannot track a FaceTime no matter what? Even if your phone is tapped, the feds still can't track a FaceTime. They can track a message, they can track a phone call, but they cannot track a FaceTime. And that's facts.
What happens if an active gang member comes back to prison on a sex offense? Let's get into this. Let me introduce you to Mr. Millerberg. This dude and his wife had a 16-year-old that was working for them as like a nanny/maid. Mostly she would just end up watching their kids because she was like a family friend's daughter. This idiot and his wife decide, let's go get her high on some opiates and do all of our weird shit with her. Sick bastard. Well, little do they know she ends up dying. She ODs. And now these two idiots are tripping. Oh my God, what do we do with the body? They went and hid her in the mountains. The body was found. They tried to go back up there and move the body. They got caught. This dude used to be an Aryan gang member. But being a sex offender, they don't play that shit. This dude got stabbed and took off the yard, which means they beat him and he is not allowed to live around general population. This dude is an official check-in. Moral to the story? Don't hurt kids. Facts.
So do I think that the popular rapper Gunna is snitching? Before I answer that question, I have to make this clear. I spent most of my life in prison. I went there at 19. I came home at 40. Prison is not an environment where that term is taken lightly. It is very serious when you call somebody that, and you have to have documentation to back it up to prove it. With that said, I think that there is a high probability that he is snitching. Here's why. First, we have to understand the charge that he is locked up for, which is a RICO charge. RICO stands for Racketeering Influenced Criminal Organizations Act, and it's basically saying that a group of people are moving in an organized fashion involved in criminal activity. So the first metric that the prosecution has to meet is proving that this group of people are a criminal organization. One of the things I learned from working in the law library is paying close attention to the language that is being used, because it matters a lot. Now listen to this statement that Gunna made.
This is what he said. And by the way, this came directly from court. He said, I recognize, accept, and deeply regret that my talent and music indirectly furthered YSL the gang to the detriment of my community. And then he said, YSL as a gang must end.
In that statement, he is acknowledging to the prosecution and the world that YSL is a gang and involved in criminal activity, which is a key component that the prosecution has to meet in order to get a guilty verdict for a RICO case. If you're not snitching, the line looks like this. We are not a gang. I don't know what y'all talking about. We just make music. All that other stuff y'all talking about is bullshit. And that is not what Gunna is saying. And it does not look good. Okay, this question right here. What is one of the most beautiful things that I've seen during my 21 years of being locked up? And I would have to say, at one of the facilities that I was at, there was a death row. The state was actually executing people at that facility. I was there for 10 years. And what some people may not know is before execution takes place, the administration places the entire prison population on lockdown 2 days before the execution, because the person who's getting ready to be executed may be in good standing with the prison population, and they fear that a riot may break out and you come off 2 days later. And everybody knows prison is extremely loud and chaotic. But at 12 o'clock on the day that an execution was taking place, the prison population would go completely silent, and it was an act of solidarity with the person who was actually getting executed. And every time that I seen that happen, it was a beauty to it, to see this just loud, chaotic world come to a complete silent standstill.
Dr. Pepper?
After 21 years in prison, I did not struggle with technology that bad, but the one area where I did have a massive complication, and I heard nobody in prison talking about this, when I went and got my license, the BMV did not warn me about this. One day I'm out driving and I run into a roundabout and I didn't know what the hell to do. Have you ever had an egregious act of disloyalty committed towards you that disrupted your life and how it made you feel? A lot of guys walk into prison feeling that way because somebody snitched on them. Let me get this clear. This video is not meant to glorify or romanticize a criminal lifestyle, but what it is meant to do is add a layer of context that I think a lot of people don't take into account. One of the key elements to understanding the overall psychology of the prison environment is you have to understand the emotional fallout from said act. So let's talk about that word snitching, because I think it does a disservice, because at the core of that is disloyalty. And everybody knows how they feel when somebody has committed an act of disloyalty toward them. But when we use the word snitching, I think it allows people that are not involved in a criminal lifestyle to disassociate from the emotional ramifications of that act. Now let's watch a video, and I want you to pay attention to how this person feels about the person they're talking about.
What was it about Gunna that made you want to work with him? And so often, too, he's featured on 2 songs on So Much Fun.
That's my brother. Like, he signed to me, but it's like, it's not even about a signature. This my real brother. It's my real little brother. I took him in. We had a big homie named Troop. Rest easy, Troop. He got killed a few years ago. But I used to have a gambling problem. He was my gambling buddy. His name Troop. He gambled his life away.
Damn.
And he brought Gunna to me. Like, hey, I want you to take them under your wing, and like, these my little boys. I really raised them. Take them under your wings, make sure they okay. And he ended up passing, so I just had to really, you know what I'm saying, live up to what he told me to do. But Gunna been around me 6-7 years. He in some of my old videos, y'all won't even know it's him. Like, I'm just shooting videos.
So that relationship isn't artist, label owner. That's
I never received $1 from him.
Damn.
Not $1. Ask him.
Now, can you imagine how he feels when the person he's talking about just played an instrumental role in possibly sending him to prison for something that they was involved in together? I think most of us can agree that that would be pretty traumatizing. A lot of times in society, you will hear somebody be like, oh, he's snitching or he got snitched on, and it's completely disassociated from the emotional fallout from that act. And when you begin to understand that emotional element, you will better understand why people involved in the criminal life hate snitches. I've never did a video like this before. I probably never will again, but I'm getting ready to tell you what prison is full of. Prison is full of heartbroken dudes suffering from PTSD because a person that they loved, that they thought loved them, betrayed them. Let's talk about snitching. So this topic I feel like I have the right to speak about because a lot of people on this app hear me talk about the 21 years in prison I did, the 60-year sentence I had. But the one thing that I never spoke about was I wasn't the only one there that night. The courts know I wasn't the only one there that night. I was the only one that ever been locked up for it, and I was the only one that went to prison for it. First off, there seems to be all this confusion going on about what is snitching. This is the streets. It is not trigonometry. It is not that complex. If a person signs on for a lifestyle that they know comes with a certain consequence and ramifications to it, when those consequences and ramifications come, you stand on principle. It's not that fucking hard to understand. If you're still a little unclear about what it is, here is a test case for you, Gunna.
I became affiliated with YSL around 2016. Is that true as it pertains to you, Mr. Kitchens?
Yes, ma'am.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what prison is full of. Guys with stories of somebody that they loved, that they thought loved them, betrayed them, and now they're sitting in prison heartbroken and suffering from PTSD that nobody talks about, that element of PTSD. Watch this video. He just sat in a courtroom and went against every principle he said he stood for, and he put people that he said he loved in situations where he has no clue what the outcome is getting ready to be for them. And he walked out of fucking court and he grabbed his girl's ass. That's the lesson. The most famous person that I met in prison. They are connected to this popular 90s sketch comedy show. In Living Color was big lit in the 90s. You had Jamie Foxx, you had Jim Carrey, you had the Wayans brothers. J-Lo was a dancer on the show. If you are not familiar with it, let me give you a taste of Fire Marshal Bill, played by Jim Carrey in Living Color.
Fire Marshal Bill! Howdy, kids! I know what you're thinking. We're all perfectly safe in this classroom, right? Right! Wrong! Just about everything you see in here is a potential hazard. Let me show you something. Let's just say you're changing the water in this here tank. And you accidentally fill it with gasoline, like so. Later that night, the janitor comes in. There's a power outage. He lights himself a match and... oh! He's cooking fish sticks!
So let's get to the joint. One day I'm in the unit and I'm sitting at a table writing. Everybody in the unit knew that I wrote movies. So this old school white dude comes up to me. He's like, people tell me that you into script writing. Then he tells me that if I need any help doing that, he knows a lot about that. And he runs off this list of credentials of all these projects he was involved in. At the same time, they were running a marathon of In Living Color on VH1. And he tells me, if you don't believe I am who I say I am, go watch In Living Color, and when the credits roll, you will see my name. He used to write Fire Marshal Bill skits for In Living Color and even won an Emmy. He was also Bill Cosby's producer. We ended up being great friends, spent a lot of time together, and he turned out being one of the most important people I've met in my life. Learn more.
The time I watched a sex offender get stomped out in county jail. Let's get into this. So one day, me and my homies were sitting there watching the news, and there was this dude that was accused of touching his 2-year-old daughter. Me and my homies were sitting there and we're like, damn, if that dude ever comes into this section, bro, ooh, boy, he's gonna get it. So about 2 days later, we're kicking it, and the next thing I hear is this dude, hey, that's that sex offender dude from the news. And we were like, what? And so we all run to the window and we look out and we see him. Dude, I shit you not, it's really him. They're putting him into the section next to me, but you can see through the windows. This is before they put the black film on the windows. Now you can't see out of them, but back in the day you could. I run immediately to the fire door, bang on the door, and tell Blue next door, this dude named Blue, this Crip, hey bro, that dude that they're bringing into the section is the dude that touched his daughter. He was like, what, for real? That dude did not last in that section, not even 10 seconds. He immediately went in and Blue just started beating the shit out of him. And that's fact. Reasons new inmates get beat up, part 3. Let's get into this. Number 1, wearing your shower shoes in the day room. I've been through this before, but when you go to prison, the cops will give you a pair of shower shoes. They look like this. If you're caught in the shower without your shower shoes, you're considered as the most nastiest person ever. And you probably will get beat up for it. Facts. Number 2, getting into debt. In prison, contraband that goes for $20 out here goes for about $100 to $200 in there. So new inmates will end up running up a debt thinking this is the streets, and then all of a sudden they're in debt about $4,000 and you got 6 different prison gangs trying to kill you. Business in prison is all connected. Number 3, being too loud in the mornings. Where I was at, there was an unspoken rule. After 10 a.m., you can be as loud as you want. But anything before 10 a.m., I'm telling you right now, you guaranteed you'll get beat up. Facts.
There are not that many convict rules in prison. It's a fairly godless place. But one of the rules, and a lot of people don't fucking like it, is you don't pick your own goddamn nickname. Most of the people have some sort of fucking street name they come in with that they just ride out with, or they get a nickname in prison that's given to them, and most of the time, people end up not fucking liking it. But if you walk up to somebody and say, my nickname's Axel, my nickname's Chainsaw, they're gonna be like, yeah, right, whatever, Fondle. That's a real nickname I gave someone, Fondle. It was fucking great. The only dude that I met who made up his own nickname and got to ride it out was because he came up with something better than anyone else could, and it really fit his personality. He went around telling people in prison that he was the big gay hustler. This dude claimed to be straight as an arrow, but he had his people put him on a gay dating site for pen pals that are in prison. He would hustle these dudes, and he got literal thousands out of these dudes from just writing letters back and forth. He had a car and apartment lined up for him when he got out. A lot of the dudes thought the nickname was kind of an insult, but he'd given it to himself and he was set up.